It's another episode of the Hoops Outsiders podcast. I'm your host, VT. Follow the show or follow me on Twitter, Temple of Hoops. Follow me on Instagram, Temple of Hoops TV. You can follow the podcast on anywhere you get your podcasts, whether it's Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iHeart. Anywhere you get your podcast from, go find the show, subscribe to it, check out all the previous episodes you may have missed. Maybe something in there you like. I'm back again. I got my boy Deshaun Tate with me, and we're gonna be talking hoops again. I definitely love his input, and I'm gonna let him tell you how you can follow him. Take it away, Tate.
Man, appreciate you, VT, for having me on tonight, man. Take Hoops on the Twitter. That ain't going nowhere. TATESTAKEHOOPS, where, as always and per usual, basketball lives. And just follow the Take podcast, man. Any and everywhere you find podcasts, bro. Take the podcast edition. All
right, there you have it. Tate, so I just want to start off real quickly with the I just saw something on TMZ about Future making designer face masks. Are you currently wearing a face mask right now with the coronavirus going around, and a lot of people are now trying to protect themselves by wearing face masks? Are you wearing face masks right now?
I am not wearing a face mask. And I'm currently outside and I'm not wearing a face mask, despite the fact that I don't have anyone around me within, 6 feet. But that's funny you asked that, man, because my mom was at work the other day and told me that, she some guy came into her restaurant wearing a mask, and he didn't understand. She didn't understand. I think he was a foreign guy or whatnot, and it was crazy because dude was wearing a Halloween mask, man. And I was like, man, it's getting, I don't know if folks getting desperate out here, but I you know what? I always love people's creativity and uniqueness. I had a really good feeling when all this stuff was going to go down and seemed like it was going to get worse. We haven't seen the craziest stuff yet, man. So shout out to dude who, I guess that's all he had, maybe made a run up to Party City and got him a Halloween mask or whatnot. Moms couldn't help but to laugh, but she better than me because I would have been on the floor, holding my stomach, turning red, veins popping out of my forehead and my neck, pointing, laughing, dying, crying, boy.
But, you got to be careful with that. He come up in there with a Halloween mask on, I'm thinking it's a stick up.
No, especially during these times. But the baby boy ain't having that. Let's just put it that way.
But do you think this is a fad, or you think this is something here to stay? You think hopefully after this coronavirus get on the wraps, do you think people will continue to wear these face masks as a fashion statement or a trend? You think it's here to stay?
Fashion statement, trend, probably not so much. I think somebody will be crazy enough to do it just for the sake of. But other than that, nah, I think as soon as this stuff starts passing over, people are still going to continue to be somewhat just rather safe than sorry. Eventually, I think we'll see our way out of that. Mm-hmm. People will tend to probably, I guess, just kind of reform back to who they were and how things were. Mm-hmm. But it's not a bad thing, man. I'm just glad, that people are taking care of themselves and practicing social distancing and all those things. I hate that it had to come to this,
right? In
order for that to be implemented. But there's a time for everything under the sun, my brother.
Okay, all right. So let's move along. Let's get into your favorite topic, which is college basketball.
Oh yeah,
I saw some interesting stuff today, and I want to start off by first saying this: who do you think could have won, and who do you think would have won the NCAA championship had it not been canceled? So there's kind of two questions: who could have won it, and who would have won it? And I know that's kind of hard to say because I guess no one knows who would have won it. But giving your best guess, who do you think would have won it? And if you say Michigan State,
could have won it, you're always going to hear in a regular year. This year wasn't much of a regular type season, where there was no clear cut favorite, and I can't even tell you the last time we've seen a year like that. But you typically hear on a regular year that there's like 12 to 15 teams that can win a national championship and cut down the net. Now, I always think that there's that many, certainly, and or if not more. But I think there's realistically about, 8 teams that could have won the national championship this year. The consensus would probably say Kansas, because they're going to be overall number one likely had they won the Big 12 conference tournament, especially if they beat Baylor in like a final game of the conference tournament or something like that. And you know what's crazy, man, and I don't want to get too long-winded. Obviously, the answer is probably Kansas, but of all of the teams that we've seen from the beginning of the year, because this was a season, bro, where it wasn't like we had to wait on March to get some madness. Like we've been getting madness all throughout the entire college basketball season. For those of you who keep up, so from that standpoint, we've seen a lot of teams that was not only ranked number one, but also in the top 10, and even more so in the top 25, that lost to unranked teams this year. Kansas was one of the very few teams, if not the only team in college basketball this year that did not lose to an unranked team. So they look like the consensus to be the team that everybody would agree with to be the one that would be the front runner to win the national championship. However, they were very far from being invincible themselves, and I had a really good feeling that they probably weren't going to be the ones to win it either, but it's hard to go against them.
Okay. Was there anybody else that made Kansas would have been your top choice? Would there have been a number 2 or number 3, in your opinion?
I think that it was I don't know if it was necessarily a distant 2-3, but I think that there was 8 teams. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really just kind of dependent upon where guys were seated in the NCAA tournament. So a lot of people would typically ask me, regardless of where we're at in the regular season, hey, do you think this team is going to Final Four? Give me your Final Four. And as much as I like to give you an answer on teams that I feel really confident that can do it, there's definitely no for sure. Because what if 2 of the teams that I had going to the Final Four were in the same region on Selection Sunday when the bracket come out? So that's always a tough question. But obviously, Kansas in that conversation. Duke obviously had a really good team, even better coach in front of them. Oregon was one of those teams. Kentucky was one of those teams. Michigan State was one of those teams. Gonzaga was one of those teams. And I think we're getting really close to the 8 mark with that, but I don't think that there's very much more that I would have taken seriously to actually stand on the ladder with the scissors in their hands, cutting down the nets in the ATL Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Okay. Now, was there a mid-major that you think maybe could have made some noise or
yeah, no doubt. Like I think that team, there was multiple teams that could do that. But the one in front of everybody, man, is Dayton.
Okay.
Dayton had a really good team, and obviously with the Player of the Year candidate, leading Player of the Year candidate, Obi Toppin, coach did a really good job. They got some transfers in there. Jalen Crutcher was a guard that was playing very well, maybe in the shadows of Obi Toppin. But one thing you always want to pay attention to when you're filling out those brackets is experienced players, which they had. Now they weren't experienced in terms of NCAA tournament appearances, but they were an experienced team in terms of upperclassmen, juniors and seniors, things like that. But, they were certainly the team that I thought was going to blow through the Atlantic team regular season in the conference. They did that. We're going to win the Atlantic 10 conference tournament. They were going to do that and make a run all the way to the Final Four, man. So they had the guards, they had the bench. That was decent. The coaching obviously plays a big part as well. But it depends on what you call Gonzaga. Gonzaga plays in with the being the West Coast Conference, it's a mid-major conference, but they're not a mid-major program necessarily because they're so respected. So from that standpoint, they could have been another team, but I realistically don't think there's a ton more than that could have won a national championship. But to make it to the Final Four, dude, this thing was wide open.
Okay. Yeah, I remember we talked about that before all this happened with the NCAA tournament being canceled. But, it's just sad that we'll never know now, and the first thing I was thinking about was these players that are one and done, like that we have up the road at University of Georgia with Anthony Edwards, but also more those kids that are seniors that's going to be their last time ever playing basketball again. This their last go round because the pros are not going to be there. Overseas may be there, but just this last time of being able to compete in March Madness is not going to be there. And I was seeing an article where the possibility of giving those players, seniors, in all spring sports, and basketball is considered one of those sports, another year of eligibility. How do you feel about that? But before you do, I'm going to tell you, I believe that's a good thing. I do think that they should have all seniors, regardless of whether they were going to be able to compete in the NCAA or March Madness. I think they all should have another year of eligibility. Now, I'm kind of leaning whereas if you were a senior and you were at a school that didn't have any chance of making the NCAA tournament, maybe not so those players, but definitely if you were a player at a school that had the opportunity to be participated in the NCAA tournament when they had Selection Sunday, I do think those seniors deserve another year to compete. What do you think?
I mean, this is the thing. It's going to be hard to decipher between who was and who wasn't going to go to the NCAA tournament because, for a perfect example, you get 68 teams into the tournament. And obviously that's including the first 4 games. But the crazy thing about college basketball is, let's just hypothetically say, I don't know, Gonzaga, for an example. Gonzaga can be a team that goes unbeaten, let's just say 18-0 within their conference. Maybe Gonzaga's not the very best example, but then you have a team like San Francisco within the same conference, or Pepperdine. Let's just say Pepperdine within the same conference, and they go 0-18. Now, let's say when the conference tournament starts, Gonzaga is meeting up with Pepperdine in the conference tournament championship. And we know that within mid-major programs, the conference tournament winner automatically goes to the NCAA tournament. Had Pepperdine beat them in a game like that, then somebody would be sacrificing a bid. So we can't never really say which team was or was not going to go to the NCAA tournament technically until the conference tournament is over. Mm-hmm. And they're out. Now, should they deserve another year for the seniors just in general and passing that law, I guess, or ruling? I'll just say that I'm not against it. I'm more for it than I am against it. It's never a bad thing when guys can go and get more education. When is that ever bad in America? You know what I mean? That just doesn't really make sense to me. But You know, it's one of those situations where